Believe it or not, that little black speck in the ceiling is our bat.
Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and this is my weekly vlog number 103 for Monday, January the 28th, 2019, and glad you could join me for this. Also, just to let you know a little secret, actually, I am old term, I am recording this one day earlier. You won't see it until Monday, but I'm actually recording it on Sunday. And I'll explain the reason for that in a few minutes. But right now, I think you noticed right at the beginning the little teaser about our little friendly bat. Yes, we had a little brown bat. He got into the house somehow. Not really sure how he got in or when he got in. We think it was because we left possibly the patio door open for a few minutes when we were outside checking the tub. And we have had bats before in the house over the years because we live on a forested area. They're very common, and they do like to find some shelter so they can hibernate in the winter. Now, they are harmless. They will not hurt you. They just look like a little flying mouse, very furry. But this little guy, Walter detected the other day hanging up in the corner near the ceiling, near the patio doors. I think he may have been in the house for a while, and we had noticed him because when we got back from Florida, I was in my sewing room, which is / Walter's workshop as well, and I heard a little flutter sound, sort of like a piece of paper falling down, and I didn't see it, so I didn't think anything more of it. But I think maybe the little bat was in around the workshop, and when I came in and turned on the lights and that, it may have disturbed him, and he kind of flew away. And that may have been when he went into the rec room and hung himself up on the ceiling. He was sleeping peacefully, but we had to try to figure out how to get him out of the house. Now, normally in the warmer weather, if you get a bat in the house, all you have to do is open up some doors and windows, and they will find their way out very quickly because they don't want to be in the house as much as you don't want them in the house. But it's wintertime. And it was very cold out that day, and the poor little thing was in hibernation mode. And so when they're when they're in hibernation mode, their bodily functions, everything shuts right down. It's almost like they're dead because they're conserving energy and, you know, everything as hibernating animals do. So we didn't want to hurt them or kill them. They're actually protected species because they do a lot of good. In the summertime, they eat a lot of the bugs and mosquitoes and things like that. And as I said, they don't really represent any harm to humans, but you don't want it in your house. So we thought, well, what's the best way to get him down? He's not going to fly out on his own because he's asleep. So we kind of tacked a sheet up around him so to isolate the area he was located in. And that was near the patio doors. We opened up the patio doors, and we opened up the door from the patio to the forest as well, hoping that we could sort of poke him so that he would start to fly. He'd see the open door and away he'd go. That was the plan. Well, we got the sheet up, the whole bit, doors open. Walter gave the bat a little poke. He kind of raised his head up in a little sleepy way and bared his teeth. And they have teeth like mice, but they're sharp. Okay, so if we'd had a pair of really heavy gloves, we could have probably just put them in our hands and, you know, held them in there, and he would have tried to bite through the gloves, but he wouldn't have got through them. My father did this kind of thing once years ago with his lineman gloves, which are very heavy leather, but of course we didn't have a pair of those. Walter did find a pair of knit gloves, like, you know, midi-like gloves. I said, no, that's not going to work because those little suckers, they can chomp right down. And you don't really want to be bitten by one because they can carry disease as well. Not to mention getting bit, you know, kind of a thing. So you don't want that. So anyways, we got this blanket put up. Walter took a broom and a stick handle and gently kind of prodded him, and he eventually kind of fell down to the floor, poor little thing. And he's sort of laying there on the floor, and he's like half dazed because he's basically being awakened from his hibernation. So, you know, think of it when you first wake up in the morning. You're not too bright either, right? At least most people aren't. So then we're trying to scooch him out over the door sill out into the patio area. That wasn't working, so Walter got a pair of those little claw things, you know, the long extensions so you can pick up things without bending over, and sort of got a hold of him gently by one of the wings and got him outside onto the step on the other side of the patio doors. We shut the doors. The outside door from the patio was open, and hope was he'd, you know, recover and go. But it was icy cold out there, and a poor little thing, you could see him, he was breathing, and so we knew he was still alive. But we didn't know, you know, you feel so bad for them. You know, I know people are afraid of bats. And I have to admit, I'm not really fond of them when they fly around. That's more myth about them flying into your hair or, you know, sucking your blood, that kind of thing. But he's a little living creature. And it's, you know, he came in, Walter found out as he did some research, that they will do that. They wake up partway through their hibernation sometimes to drink, and then they go back to sleep. So he may have taken that opportunity because they're very sensitive to the elements. So possibly when Walter was checking the hot tub and the door was open, he was maybe just hanging up in our rafters of our patio area somewhere. And they're very tiny. Like you saw him there, he's not very big, but they can get into a space, it said on the internet, that's only a centimeter in size, 1 centimeter. They're like mice. They don't really have a bone structure like you think of. It's cartilage, so they can flatten it right down and get into very small places, and they like to get into very small places all curled up in the winter. Keeps the body temperature, you know, warm and sheltered. Anyways, I went back about 10 minutes later and he was gone. So whether he got up and flew out the door or whether he's up in our rafters in the hot tub area, I don't know. I suspect he's up there in the rafters. And I do go out to the hot tub usually once a week. But I'm not going to think about the fact he's up there. He's not going to bother me. He's not going to bother to wake up and swoop all over me and do horrible things. And, you know, as I said, they are protected. They're kind of cute. I think they're kind of cute. And they do a lot of good. So I'll just let lying bats lie. But I'll make sure that the patio door I shut immediately right behind me when I go out there, because I don't want him in the house again. So anyways, that was our little bat adventure, and that was excitement this week, and that's why I put him up in the teaser for you to see him. It's not a really great picture, Walter took it, but you get the idea. Okay, so what else am I going to show you? Well, I said last week on Stephen and Walter Live, that which we did from our room at the guest house in Florida, that we had done some shopping for fabric, and so I thought I would show you my stash. So I got all of these. These are fat quarters, but they're laid out. But I love the colors. Couldn't resist this. And I am going to use this in a project that I'm going to show you in a moment. Got some various fat quarter bundles from various places. These. And these ones are still rolled up. And some more fat quarters. Nice bright colors. I love bright colors in a quilt. There's some more. These ones look like fun. I think there's 3 or 4 fat bundles in this. And these were pricey, $44.95 for I think 6 panels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. But I couldn't resist the colors. Plus, this one on the back, I actually had bought a couple of meters of this fabric, and that's going into my show quilt, which I showed you a couple of weeks ago, that I'm still working on. And then of course we had to get some jelly rolls. So this is one set of jelly rolls, and another one, and another one. So yeah, I bought a fair amount of fabric. Price wise, it wasn't any cheaper in some cases than what we already pay for it here. But I liked the colors, and you know, it's all part of my stash. Now, what were the actual prices? Well, the one place where I got like these were as expensive as they are here, and in fact maybe a little bit more so, because I'm just trying to tidy up here so I make some space on my desk. Oops, hit the light. Okay. And with the exchange between the Canadian and the American dollar, it made them even more pricey. I think at the one quilt shop we went to in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale, called Once Upon a Quilt, which was a nice little store, that I think I spent $125 and change American. It translated, when I saw it on my Visa bill, to $170 Canadian, so not cheap. Some of the fat quarter bundles you saw we bought at Joann's Fabrics. Now the quality of these types of fat quarters is not as good as what I'm used to buying here. So like these were $3.99 for 3 fat quarters, American again, so about $4.50. That's in around price range in Canada. The jelly rolls, I think a couple of those came from a place called Tuesday Morning, which I have heard people talk about Tuesday Morning. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I know that a lot of people that I've seen it on YouTube get some really great deals on crafting supplies there. So we went to actually a couple of Tuesday Mornings. I hadn't even thought of it until somebody wrote me a comment in our live from Florida mentioning Tuesday Morning. Have we been there yet? And I think it was Cindy. And no, so we looked it up, and yeah, there was a couple of them not far from where we were staying, so we went there. And basically a Tuesday Morning is like a liquidation center. They have all kinds of stuff. They have housewares, patio furniture, cushions, bedding, bath stuff, and crafting stuff, and they also had fabric. And the prices on the fabric were pretty good. Those jelly rolls were about $14.99. Now again, I'm not sure about the quality of those fabrics because I'm not familiar with the manufacturer. But at $14.99, I figured, how can you go wrong? Walter bought a couple too for himself, and he bought some fat quarters as well. So that was the extent of our fabric purchases while we were in Florida. So moving on. So this week's YouTube channel is one that has just recently come on the scene, and it's by one of my regular viewers to Stephen and Walter Live, so I thought I'd give her a plug. So watch this. This week's YouTube channel is by one of my regular subscribers and viewers of Stephen and Walter Live by the name of Deb Walls, and her channel is called Debs Walls Shadylady Cards and Crafts. And although she only has a few subscribers, because this is pretty much a pretty new channel, she does have some really interesting videos about card making, basically showing off her style. Deb is in the very beginnings of creating a YouTube channel, so there isn't a lot of content on here yet, but go to it, check it out, subscribe, and I'm sure very soon Deb is going to populate this channel with a lot of very interesting videos. So that's Debs Walls Shadylady Cards and Crafts. So you'll find the link to Deb's YouTube channel in the show notes below. You will also find the link to, okay, you're not going to find the link to Stephen and Walter Live this week, because although I told you this is Monday, it's actually Sunday, and it's Sunday morning, and we haven't done Stephen and Walter Live yet today. But I think most of you know where to find that anyways, and if you don't, just do a search, Stephen and Walter Live, and you'll find them all there. And there's the link to the book I'm going to talk about later today. So, why is it that I am recording this on Sunday, January 27th, but it'll seem like it's Monday, January the 29th, okay? And this brings me to what I'm pissed off about this week, and I'm pissed off with myself. And why am I pissed off with myself? I overscheduled myself. I am really busy. Just came back from a very relaxing holiday for 1 week and right back into the fray of things. And I only have myself to blame for this. My week next week is like this. Okay, Monday, 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a quilting class. That'll run until about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Tuesday, 1:30 in the afternoon, I have a quilting class. Wednesday, have to go visit my mother. Thursday, I have a hair appointment, and then I have a quilting class. Friday, I go to a sewing retreat that's being sponsored by my guild. That's all day Friday till about 11 o'clock at night. Saturday, repeat, sewing retreat, same hours. Sunday, art journal class. Monday again, I start the whole cycle over again, minus the retreat. So, in between all of that, I have my homework I have to do from the classes. I've spent the weekend, and after I finish recording this, I'm going to continue working on cutting up the material I need for these classes. And there is a lot of material to cut up, believe me. One of the projects has, as part of the cut, 256 2x2 squares. Actually, I've got that part done. So I am very, very busy. Plus, all the other things that you do on a daily basis. So usually I do the vlog on Monday mornings, first thing, to get it up and ready to go, because I have to process it. It takes time to upload. It takes about an hour and a half for it to upload to YouTube. It's not very fast upload. So all of that takes time. So I'm saying to myself, how am I going to schedule this all in? So that's the reason why I'm doing Monday's vlog on Sunday right now. Now come next week, I have a doctor's appointment at 9 o'clock in the morning on the Monday. Then at 10 o'clock, I have another quilting class to go to. So I'm thinking, when am I going to do the vlog? I may do the vlog again on the Sunday morning for posting on the Monday because of my schedule on the Monday. My head is whirling in all of this, trying to get things planned. I'm a little overwhelmed by how much I've done, and this is why I'm pissed off, because I have only myself to blame. I told myself I was only going to take a couple of classes this session. I ended up taking 4, and all 4 of those classes are done just before we go to Australia. So it's busy, 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 busy. It's a good thing I am retired. And I have said it before, and people have said it to me, you'll never be as busy as you are when you're retired. It's true. It's very true. But I brought it on myself. Now, I'm not really complaining about this. It's not really pissing me off this much because I tend to be a list maker, a scheduler. I'm very organized. I have my agenda out. I have everything planned out as to what I need to do to get through all of this. And I find for me that alleviate some of the overwhelmness that happens when you overschedule your time. God help me though, if something extra comes into that schedule, like I'm figuring my car needs an oil change coming up real soon. And yeah, I'll have to figure that out, how to get that planned in there. But I only have myself to blame for that. And you know, a lot of people's attitude is when things like this happen, they get so busy, they shut down. You know, they just don't do anything more. And I'm not going to do that. It's tempting to do so, but no way. I want to do these things and I'm going to do them. And I like to be busy. So this is busy. But when I'm busy like this, I also know myself, which pisses me off. I get a little frustrated with people. I get a little impatient with people. Small things that I shouldn't get upset about can upset me. So I have to be on my guard about that kind of thing so that I don't explode on anybody, any poor little innocent bystander. But yeah, so what I'm pissed off about is the fact that because of my decisions, have made my life very complex at the moment. But we'll live through it, and I'll have several nice quilts, I hope, at the end of it all. Okay, so moving on. Product review. I don't have anything new to show you, but I have ordered some new things. Now, of course, you know that Creativation the big showcase that happens twice a year in the States, where all the vendors come out with all their new products. And of course, I'm a sucker for all those new products, and I want them all. Well, again, I'm limiting myself to what I'm purchasing, he says right now. But I saw something that looked fantastic. And it works with your Cricut Maker or your Silhouette and most of the electronic cutting machines. I think it'll work with the Brothers Scan and Cut as well. It involves actually foiling things. You know how the big trend was to put foil on everything, and you had transfer sheets or foil sheets that you had to put through a heat laminator? Well, apparently We Are Memory Keepers has come out with this little device that plugs right into your Cricut Maker or whatever your electronic machine is, into one of the pen or the blade holders. It heats up, you have foil, and it will, whatever design you put in, it will draw it all out in foil. So I investigated when this might be available through my local craft store, Class Act. And yes, they can get it. It won't be released from their distributor until somewhere in late February. Now, I have ordered things before in advance from We Are Memory Keepers through this distributing company, and it never comes when they say it's going to come. It's going to be 6 months to 8 months, probably. That's okay. I can wait for it. It's just an expensive tool. It's a little over $100 for the starter kit, American, and plus I bought a couple of some packages of foil, and then they had a couple of jump drives, actually USB drives, that have designs and things on them, and I bought those. So in all told, it probably, when I finally get it, when the store's markup on it, exchange rate, it'll probably be about a couple $100 for this. But that's going to be my new tool this year. I saw a few other things that sounded interesting, less expensive. I may or may not order those. But another thing that I ordered, which I can't show you, and when it does come, actually it's supposed to come today, Sunday, from Amazon. We'll see. But they're called moldable foam blocks. And I saw, I think it was Julie Fafe-Balzer using them on her channel. And basically they look like little plastic sponges, and you heat them up for a few seconds with a hairdryer or your heat gun. Then they become soft and moldable, and you can press them into something like a stencil or something that's raised. And when they cool off, which probably only takes a few seconds as well, you've got a stamp. And you can use this in your jelly plate printing and other applications as well. And when you're finished with that design, you just heat it up again and it all smooths out. And so it's reusable. So I looked on Amazon, and yeah, these things aren't that expensive. I think, well, I have Amazon Prime, so I don't have to pay shipping, but it's cost me like $11.68, and I think it's a package of 8 blocks that are in it. So we'll see what happens with those. So those are the two things that I can't show you yet. I will show you whenever I get them, but I thought they were kind of unique and might be fun. Okay, so let's see. Book review this week. Well, I am continuing my series later in this vlog about my evolution as a scrapbooker. So the books I'm featuring right now are ones that inspired me and taught me some various techniques for scrapbooking. And one of those is one by a company that doesn't exist anymore called Memory Makers, Scrapbooking Your Adult Years. What I liked about this is that if you notice the trend in scrapbooking, and it always has been this way, people are making scrapbooks about their grandchildren or their children, that kind of thing. So things tend to be juvenile in design. What I mean by that is you got cartoonish like stickers and embellishments and things like that, cutesy things that are appropriate for a kid. But if you're doing a page about yourself, about your spouse, about your life, then those kind of stickers and things aren't really appropriate, I think. So this book will help you to make fairly sophisticated looking pages that, have a more adult appeal to them. And as with all Memory Maker books, it's all color illustrated, an explanation, and you use these books as a jumping off point to give you ideas. And so this is a a very good one for that kind of thing. So if you're looking for ideas for creating something a little bit more adult, a little bit more sophisticated, then in your scrapbooking pages, then this book might be of help for you. Now, where can you get it? Well, last week's book, I told you the company doesn't exist anymore, and that one I found on eBay. This one is actually on Amazon.ca. I've put the link in the show notes below, and the price is, let me just check my notes here, it's $11.58 Canadian, but they had listed in the used section for as low as 87 cents. Now, I have no idea what the shipping would be like on that. That might be much more substantial depending on where you live. But it is available there, and I've given you the link so you can check it out for yourself if you're interested in it. Okay, so that takes me to my little segment here about my scrapbooking evolution. And this week I'm looking at travel scrapbooks. So now I thought I would show you my evolution in scrapbooking in terms of travel scrapbooking, because we do a lot of travel scrapbooking. When we go on trips, we like to take our pictures and put them into an album and show people, and of course scrapbookers have been doing this for years. So I started, one of my very first travel albums was this one. Now, first of all, I really loved this album when I bought it. So at the same time as I was starting to develop my style in scrapbooking, I was also very much attracted to album covers. So I was always constantly looking for album covers that I really liked. And I liked this one. Now, this one does have a bit of a travel theme, as you can tell as well, because on here, embossed on the cover, amongst the flowers, are some postcards. And so I thought this was an appropriate album for this trip. Now, this trip was in 2004, and it was to Holland and other parts of Europe and to Paris. So we'll just take a look in here. So on the first page, let me get this in shot. There we are, the two of us, younger selves. I mean, 2004, what's that? 15 years ago? Hard to believe. We were skinnier, but I started with a title page, and you can see here that I'm adding some travel embellishments that I purposely went out to buy, some charms here and here, and this little tag. I think this tag already came made like this. I wasn't yet at the stage where I was making a lot of tags on my own. And of course I was using my printer to print out my pictures and alter the size of them, and it's all very nicely matted. Now on the inside I have a table of contents. Sorry about the glare, but this is the table of contents, and I listed all the places that we went, and this is how I organized the album. I organized it by the various stops we made. You'll also notice that I did a lot of journaling in this particular album. Now I can't remember clearly or not, but I think I had a little travel journal with me, and I wrote down things from each stop we went to. And when I got home, I retyped them into my computer, and I created this cute little graphic element that they sit on top of. I think I just used WordPerfect or some form of word processing program at the time. And of course, I was in love with using vellum, so I printed these out onto vellum because I didn't want it to necessarily block out the background of the page. And of course, everything is matted. So we move on, and you're going to see in this album I tried to do things that were related to travel in terms of embellishments. So I have some stamps here. I used some of these slides at that time. Using blank old projector slides was a trend for card making, for tag making, and in scrapbook albums. And here I'm using it to highlight various areas on each of these pictures. Might have got a little carried away with these, and actually, when I look at them now, I think this was pretty dumb of me to do it because it really took away from the focal point of each picture. I guess I was trying to highlight a focal point, but I don't think it worked all that well. But at the time, I thought it was cool. Of course, on my trips as well, I collected various pieces of memorabilia. These are some actual coins from, I'm not sure, I think this is probably, oh, it's Amsterdam. It says it up here. I have titles. Which I also did in a fancy font, and I printed these on acetate so that you wouldn't see them, like it wouldn't be a solid white or a colored background on it. Again, You won't find any of my own handwriting in these albums because I hate my own handwriting. I can hardly read it. And of course, this is a placemat for a beer company, and I added that as well. And I even tried to make sure that my background paper kind of kept up with the theme of the pages I was doing. So I used this beer mat, and this background paper is a whole bunch of other beer mats as well. I also kept ticket stubs as well. So we move on. This was a museum that we went to in Holland, more journaling, and some shots of some of the actual works of art. And I did try to crop them down so that they were in a frame. Now, I'm not sure if this was the actual frame or whether I did this with a program. I think I did this with a program to frame them in. And then here's an extensive amount of journaling here. And this took me quite a while to get that all together. And some more 3D embellishments. And so on throughout the book. So the same thing. I started to get sort of into the groove of when I was making this album, because that was the one thing about making travel albums. The number of pictures I was taking at the time, and of course it's all digital pictures, so you know what you do with digital pictures, you take thousands of them. So I had to sort out the pictures, organize them on my computer, decide on the ones I want to print, and then print them out. And that's not as easy as it sounds because you want to print everything. Here I used a little bit of ribbon with some stamped words on it. I think the ribbon came that way. I don't think I was advanced enough to try that on my own yet. And again, then I started doing sort of getting more into the digital form of scrapbooking at this point. So this album started out with your traditional matting and that kind of thing, cutting things out. Now I'm doing the entire page on the computer. So none of this has been glued down. This has all been done on the computer digitally. And I add shadows around the pictures here and some of my embellishments, all of this, and printed it out. Now you may wonder, how did I print out 12 by 12 pages? I bought, at the time, that cost me, I think, about $600 at the time, a wide format Epson printer that could handle 12 by 12 pieces of paper. And in fact, I was doing these on glossy photo paper, which at the time to get it was hard to get it. Staples never seemed to have it, and that's where I was buying it from. And it was very, very expensive. I think you got 10 or 20 sheets for an astronomical amount of money, like $60 or something like that. So you used it sparingly. But I would keep my eye open for sales, and I would stockpile them when they put them on for like about half price. And to this day, I have a stack this high, hard to do this on the camera, a good size stack, probably 6 inches high or more, of this 12 by 12 photo paper, which is very difficult to get today. Probably have to order it online, and very expensive. And I have a year's supply. I have many years' supply of it because I don't do digital scrapbooking anymore. So here again, all digital. And so from here on in, you can see this was my beginnings of getting more heavily into digital scrapbooking. And at the time, because I love machines, because I love my computers, this really appealed to me. And so I started to experiment, like here, for example, adding in little corner pieces to the page. And so it goes on. Now, the thing that I liked about digital scrapbooking at the time was that you could get a fair number of pictures on a page. I was still at that stage where you want to get as many pictures on a page as you could, because I could make them various sizes and fit them in. And then I'm experimenting here. Even this is one of those like slide ideas before, but it's all digitalized. And also, it was easier when it came to in terms of journaling. So I think in these early albums, when I started digital scrapbooking, you will find there is much more journaling. And it continues. So that gives you a glimpse into one of my travel books, one of my earlier ones, but it was also a transitional album because of my movement from traditional cut and paste scrapbooking to digital cut and paste scrapbooking. And at the end of my albums, what I like to do is I saved all those pictures because they were digitalized on my computer. It was a simple matter to transfer them to a blank DVD or CD, and I put all my pictures on these two formats. Now, at the time, this was all the rage in terms of storing, or a medium for storage. Now, sadly, or not so sadly, this has all gone by the wayside. So it'll come down to some time in the future where people might not be able to even read these discs. Sort of like 3.5-inch floppy disks. Nobody has a computer anymore unless you have an old computer or you've bought specifically a drive that can read 3.5-inch discs. You can't even buy them anymore unless you find them in, a surplus store or something like that, or online. And these will probably go the same way. But for now, there they are. So that was from 2004. Let's go to 2006 very quickly. Again, a specialty album. We went to Disney's that year, so I bought the album at Disney, and I bought a scrapbooking kit from Disney as well. And again, in here, you can see this has all been done digitally. But these elements and these were actual die cuts that I bought when I was in Disney. And what I did was I scanned them into the computer, and then I printed them or used them as part of the digital layout. Again, you can see there is more journaling here. Also, I've got a program that created kaleidoscope effects, and so that's what I'm using in the background of this. At the time, I was collecting a lot of digital programs because there was a lot out there, and Creative Memories came out with lots of digital stuff. Becky Higgins. There was different companies, even Creative Memories, the ones that did all the little fancy little cutter things that I started with, they were coming out with their own dedicated computer program for creating digital pages, which I used for a while, but it had a very steep learning curve, and I just didn't stick to it. My program of choice for doing my digital pages was actually Photoshop Elements. I think I started at Photoshop Elements 3 or 4, and I've moved up ever since. Now, I haven't updated it in quite a while because I still use that program, but for other applications, and I don't use it that much, and it is an expensive program. But it's a great program for doing this kind of thing. But, of course, if you want to use a program that is very user-friendly, then you might want to find a company that does like memory mixers, I think it's called. I used that for a while, which is very good. Easy to use and easy to set up pages like this. I just preferred Elements. So that album was completely digitalized. Now moving up, this is a huge album. In fact, remember what I said about the number of pictures you take digitally? Well, this is volume 1 of 2. This is when I went, oops, upside down, when I went to China in 2011. And so here, the first few pages of this, I had just got the Creative Memories, I think it was called the Storyteller or something like that, digital program. It cost me about $100. And I started using that for the first few pages, but I got a little frustrated with that program as time went on, and I just went back to Photoshop Elements. In the background here, you'll notice my background paper. These were all papers that were digitalized and that came with the program I just mentioned from Creative Memories. So I was playing around with this kind of thing. Now you notice something that's lacking here. I'm lacking journaling. I hate journaling. So in this particular album, I didn't do a lot of it. Now there are spots where I did more. Now you see here, I moved away from the Creative Memories program. I'm back using Photoshop Elements. And I guess the reason there isn't much journaling at the beginning of this album is because I couldn't figure out how to do it efficiently with that other program. But even still, I don't have as much journaling. And I know purists out there are going to be on my case saying you've got to record your story. Well, there is stuff here, I guess. I think I was more selective about what I was journaling about. But you can see, all digitalized, the whole bit. And as I said, at the time, this was the cat's meow for me. So, that's a glimpse at some of my travel albums. I have others. I also moved into Project Life later on, which I'm going to talk about Project Life in a future video as I move through my evolution of scrapbooking. So next week, I'm going to take a look at some other specialized types of albums, especially those that deal with pets. So next week I'm going to look at another type of specialty scrapbooking that a lot of people like to do, and that's pet albums. So stay tuned for that for next week. Now, this week I'm continuing my series on my album making process. I have to apologize. I had done a few of the video clips in advance and I sort of got them mixed up. So last week's I thought I was giving you a brand new one and it was a repeat of the week before. So I apologize for that. So I think I've got myself on the right track, and so I'm going to insert here this week what I'm doing with my album. So in this segment, I'm going to show you how I'm going to cover the pages that'll be inserted into the album and how I'm going to insert them into the album. Now, I've already done some preliminary work here, so you don't have to watch me all the way through, but here are 3 of my pages already inserted into the album. So, first thing you want to do is take your basic page and fold it on the score lines. And I've already done that, but I'm just showing you here. And use a bone folder, and this is a Teflon bone folder. And what I find with the Teflon bone folder, rented lips, is that it doesn't leave marks on your paper. Some bone folders, depending on what they're made out of, and they're not all made out of bone, most of them are made from plastic, depending on what they're made out of, can leave marks, especially on dark paper. So this is my flap, and this is my hinge, and this is what I will be using to attach it to the inside of the album. But right now I need to cover these. So I pre-cut my pages that I want to use, and I've made them slightly smaller so there'll be a black border all the way around. On the back side, I've put 2 thicknesses of double-sided tape. I use the 1/2-inch double-sided tape for along these 3 edges, and I used, since we have a curve, I used 1/4 inch so I could just go around the curve. So I'm going to show you how I did that. I'm going to take another page, and I want to use this side because these were 2 sheets of this paper in each package. So I want one of these sides to show up and I want the other side to show up. So this one, because I put the tape on the back side of this is the side that I'll see. So I want this side to be seen. So I'm going to put tape on this side. Now, of course, it's up to you what sides of your double-sided paper you might want to use, or you might be using single-sided paper. And then, of course, you don't have to make a decision because nobody wants just a plain white background page, I don't think. Well, then again, you might. Who knows? Maybe if you're going to use it as a journaling page, it could be that. So, up to you. So I have the wider, and now I'm going to, because there's a curve, I'm just going to go around in shorter pieces. Now, you could use glue for this as well. The only thing about glue is some glues will make your pages warp, whereas with the double-sided tape, they don't. But what you give up when using the tape is that your placement. Once this gets stuck down, you can't pull it back up. It'll rip the underneath paper. Okay, so I've got my tape on here, and I've smoothed it down using my bone folder to make sure I've got good contact with each piece of tape. And then I'm just using a paper piercer to lift off the protective backing because I don't have any fingernails. If you have long fingernails, you probably don't need to use a paper piercer, but I find it very handy. So we're just getting the backing off the tape, and now I'm going to use the hinge folded up as my guide, and I'm just eyeballing it. And there you go. You see, I just blew it. I just blew it. I'm off center. Am I going to get worried about this? No, I'm not. You know what I'm going to do? I don't have any tape on that very point, so I'm just going to take my scissors and trim it off. Yes, it's not a perfect fit, but by the time I get this all embellished and everything, no one's going to notice that. Now, before I put a cover on this side, I want to refold this along the score lines. And you will find your paper may buckle a little bit. Your paper might actually, depending on the quality of it and the thickness of it, it may actually split along here. Again, I'm not going to worry about that because I'm going to go over that with ink later to hide that. So that's not a problem. And I want to fold this both ways. The more you work this, the easier this is going to be to manipulate. Okay, now it did crack a little bit down here, but as I said, I'm not going to worry about that. So I'm just going to fold up the hinge on the edge as my guide again. I'm going to take my second piece and I'm going to do the same thing. Peel off my backing paper off these 1/4 inch strips, and you do want to use a good quality double-sided tape if you're using double-sided tape. If you get the type of double-sided tape they often sell in the dollar stores, you may be saving some money, but your pages are all going to fall out eventually. Whereas you use a good quality like Suguang tape or red tape, you won't have that problem. Okay, let's see if I can line this up a little better. Yeah, it's a little better. Not perfect. But these aren't cut quite perfectly, but that's okay. As I said, this is background. And when we add embellishments and things like that to it all, it's not going to be noticeable that you didn't get a perfect alignment. Now, one of the reasons I didn't get a perfect alignment is because when I cut these with the Cricut, resizing it does not absolutely do the exact proportions. If you were to trace these out and cut them by hand, you could probably get a little better fit, but I didn't want to do that. Now you see my paper is buckling a little bit here, so I'm just using my bone folder to smooth it out. And again, over time, it will settle down as we get more things on the page. And I'm just folding it both ways. Okay. So now it's time to put it in the album. Let's get some room here. Now, I've already put some pages in, and all they're going is in along the spine. So what I want to do is take some of the 1/4 inch tape, flip this over to the side I want. It doesn't really matter which side goes where, but I want to put my tape right along this hinge, and the hinge is pretty much about 1/4 inch wide as well. So you want to get the tape right on the edge, but not over the score line. Again, this is why I say use a really good quality double-sided tape, because this is what's going to be holding this page into the book, and if it lets go, your page is going to fall out. Okay, now I'm just going to line this up and try to keep it as straight as you can and butt it up to the page that was on here before. Now I went a little crooked, so I'm going to try to pull it up a little bit and just adjust it a little bit. And I'm still a little crooked, so. Now luckily I had covered this spine with a piece of cardstock or a piece of pattern paper earlier, because that's allowing me to pull up. I'm still not getting it very straight. Yeah, okay. Line it up with the edge here. Okay, try this. If you're having trouble, just pull up the hinge, line up your edges with your cover, It is fiddly. It takes a little bit of time. And that should be straighter, and it is. Now you'll notice that this page before this was a little crooked as well. I wonder if I can. Oh, I can. So my recommendation is, even though you're not going to see this little spine piece, put it on. If you need to readjust with the double-sided tape, it will help. That's a little better. And as you can see, I got all of these pages a little crooked. So I'm going to try to straighten them out. You want to make sure your very first page is straight. If it's not, the others are going to be crooked, and that's what I'm showing you right here. So we'll just if a little bit of the tape is coming out through the side, you can just scrape it off or kind of tuck it in. There we go. And I guess I might as well straighten this one up too. Okay, got that released. Now you want to make sure you don't put the hinges of your inserted pages over top of the score line of the cover, or your book won't open. And just use your bone folder to give it a good pressing on each one. And that's better. I wasn't happy with it the first time I put it down because I did get it crooked. I didn't think you'd notice, but you would have. Okay, there we are. We have all our pages in the booklet now. And we'll just try the clasp. There it is. And so far, that's what we've done. So we have the pages. Now what I will do is, because this is still pretty stiff, I'm going to open it up like this, lay it flat. I'm going to put a heavy weight on top of these just to hold them down as that tape sets. And that should keep everything nice and flat. Okay, so the next stage of this, which will be on the next video, I'm going to start adding the pockets. So that takes us to events in the past week. Well, of course, you know, we were in Florida, and thank you for those who joined us on the Stephen and Walter Live. I didn't think that was one of our better ones. There were some technical issues. Actually, we only lost connection once in that, and so we had a fairly good Wi-Fi connection in the guest house. But to be honest, our camera position wasn't the best, mainly because of the situation we were in. And I create notes of things we're going to talk about, so we have a guideline. And I did a rough kind of outline for that, but because we were on vacation, our usual segments or things we talk about weren't there. And so there were moments when I was sort of struggling to figure out what we're going to talk about. And not to rub our noses in anybody, or rub people's noses in the fact that we were in a warm climate if they weren't, kind of a thing. So anyways, we had a good trip, but we were ready to come home. We're going to talk more about that on Stephen and Walter Live. Like the area that we were in wasn't the best in Fort Lauderdale, and we've been to Fort Lauderdale several times over the years. We did a lot of walking, we did a lot of lunching. Got to do some more walking. I got to get rid of this. We both need to lose some weight, and that wasn't just from the trip. Yeah, it was a good trip though. It was not here. It was warm. We were watching the weather reports for home, and yes, we left at the right time because they got a real bad storm, really cold. And as I say that, when I look out my window right now, well, it's nice and sunny now, but we had some snow last night. It looks pretty. Problem is, you have to shovel it. So anyways, the Florida trip was great. Came back, went over to see my mother on the weekend. She's doing fine, but the funny thing was, my sister mentioned that my mother, when she'd gone over, had a bit of a cold, had a bit of a cough. What she didn't mention was that my mother was isolated, which is standard procedure in a nursing home when somebody gets a sniffle or flu or like symptoms or something like that, so it doesn't, spread throughout the whole nursing home. And that's dangerous because, people up in those age groups are much more susceptible to catching something, and it can be more fatal for them. So she was isolated, which meant basically they kept her in her room, and they brought her meals and things like that. But I didn't know she'd been isolated until I got a call just before we went over to see her, telling me that, yeah, she was out of isolation. Okay, didn't know that. My sister didn't mention that to me. I would assume my sister knew, but I guess she just didn't think about it. But anyways, we went over. She's better. She's not isolated anymore, and she seems to be doing okay. Starting to complain a little bit about the food lately. As I've said before, my mother's only happy when she is complaining, but I'm not going to let that get my goat, because I know that that'll disappear and she'll be onto a new topic when I talk to her next. So no sense getting upset about it. I mean, if I told her, if it continues to be bad for whatever reason, and her definition of why it's bad, like they had chili and she said, well, it just didn't have any taste to it all, no spice. Well, that was one of the foods that my mother used to make. My father loved it, and my mother put a lot of spice into it, and it was very hot in spice terms, because my father liked it that way. We all liked it that way. And in the nursing home, they don't tend to do that because, there's a lot of people there that wouldn't like that kind of thing. But I've noticed that when the foods that she does complain about is something that she used to make. So of course it doesn't come up to her standard. And my mother was a reasonably good cook. So yeah. But anyways, I said to her, well, Mama, if you think, it's getting worse, or, it's not getting better, let me know. I'll give the dietitian a call. That's probably not going to happen for a couple of reasons. One, my mother doesn't like people to make a scene. I don't have trouble making a scene. I'm a drama queen. There's no two ways about it. If it need be, I will make a scene. And she knows that about me, and it scares her, okay? Also, I know that that's just the flavor of the week right now, what she wants to complain about. Next week, it'll be her roommate, or it'll be something else. So if I just say to her, well, okay, Mom, let me know, and I'll go into action, I know it's probably not going to happen. So, yeah, I'm not going to let it get my goat, okay? It's not a serious matter. If something was really serious or that, I'd definitely do something about it, or try to do something about it. But I know this is just her normal state. But anyways, she's there. So, and I'm getting a little bit more adjusted to all of this as well. I'm trying to get over, the guilt feelings about putting my mother in a home kind of a thing. I used to joke about that, I'm the one that's going to be picking out your home. Yep, it was true. So anyways, she's fine. Sewing classes. I already mentioned I've overdone myself. I'm taking 4 classes all at the same time. And yeah, and I've got the retreat coming up. I'm looking forward to that. I have a feeling, I was wondering what I would do at the retreat. I've got some kits and things that I could work on, but I have a feeling with these other classes I'm taking, I will have more than enough to work on. And maybe that's a good thing too, because it'll keep me ahead of the game, at this retreat. And I had my sewing machine tuned up. And yeah, before we left for Florida, I took it in because my automatic threader, my needle threader, isn't working again. No fault of the machine, it was my fault. I tried to force too thick a thread through too small a hole, and that does it. And I have to remember that I should only use the threader when I'm using my standard thread for quilting, or I'm using my standard threads for embroidery. If I'm using any specialty thread or anything like that, or specialty needles, then no, do it manually. So I also wanted it cleaned up a little bit. Well, I mean, I haven't had it that long and I keep it fairly clean, but I figured it's in there anyways, and it's costing me just for them to, you know, have it in the shop like 90 bucks there. So, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound kind of a thing. So I got it back on Friday. Purrs like a kitten right now, but something really weird. On the repair person's invoice sheet, it said replaced, wrong bobbin case, replaced, no charge. I thought, wrong bobbin case. So I looked at it. I saw he included the old bobbin when I got the machine back, and he had the new bobbin in it. So I took a look at the bobbin case in it. And yeah, it looked very much the same as the original bobbin case, but it had an extra part to it. Well, I have not replaced the bobbin case since I bought the machine back in, when was it, October, something like that, or September. So that was the one that came with the machine. And although they look very similar, they are different. And yeah, it does make a difference. And I'm thinking maybe some of the problems I had with the machine, thinking that it was user error, was actually caused because I had the wrong bobbin case. Anyways, I asked Shirley at Ultimate Sewing about this, and it's a mystery to her too, because she says, well, you know, you got it right out of the box. So all I can assume is one of two things. Either that machine had come out of the box and I didn't know that before I bought it, and somebody was using it. Now, there was an upgrade kit that went with this machine, and I'm wondering if in the process of possibly the people at the Ultimate Sewing upgrading it and then putting it back in the box, that the wrong bobbin got put into it. Maybe, or maybe it came that way from the manufacturer. Anyways, it was a good thing that I had the machine tuned up, because I wouldn't have known that at all. And I might have had future problems with that. So anyways, it's all cleaned up. Cost me about 150 bucks in total with the tax and everything. But as I said, it purrs like a kitten. So getting your machine tuned up once a year, I think, is probably a really good idea. I mean, after all, you're investing a lot of money. I've invested a lot of money into this machine. You want to, you know, keep it for a long time and keep it in good working order. So, you know, it is an investment. Okay, so what's coming up? Well, I've already mentioned the sewing retreat. It's actually a 3-day retreat, but I'm only going for 2, and it's local, so it doesn't involve staying in a hotel room or anything like that. It's at a local community hall, and they provide meals while you're there, and you just sew from, I don't know what time it's supposed to start in the morning. I'm supposed to get an email from the guild telling me what time I can show up for, and I think it goes to 11 o'clock at night. And you do that for 3 days. Friday, starts on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday, I think, ends at around noon time. But I'm not going to the Sunday one because that's when I'm teaching my next art journaling class. So yes, next week's, not this week's, next, okay, see, because I'm doing this on Sunday, but it's going to come out on Monday, I will have already done, by the time you see this, we've already done Stephen and Walter Live for this week. So the one that will come out on February the 3rd will be 1 hour later because I'm doing my art journaling class that day. So that'll be at 5 p.m. Okay. I hope that makes sense. So anyways, yeah, so I've got that. I've got the sewing classes, as I mentioned before, and I have my art journaling class. So busy. Busy, 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 busy. And, you know, in some ways, although if I think about it, it could immobilize me because you're going, oh my God, I'll never get all these things done. But I know myself, I will. I mean, after all, I was a high school teacher, and every day, excuse me, every day was packed. I was busy, busy, busy. Had all kinds of deadlines to meet, all kinds of stuff there. So I can live with it. I can handle it. Okay. So that's about it for this week. So I hope you have a good week, and we'll see you on Stephen and Walter Live February the 3rd at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a good one. Bye for now.